Hello everybody, this is Gregory with 5-Minute Catholic Apologetics and Living, where 5 minutes of your time may get you to the divine. Today we're going to give 6 tips on how men should model themselves as head of the domestic church. Now before we begin, let's start with a prayer. Nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritui Sancti. Amen. Gloria Patri et Filio et Spiritui Sancto, secutor in principio, et nunc et semper, et seculi seculorum. Amen. Men are head of the domestic church. I know this is so retro, toxic patriarchy, but we are head of the domestic church. So we have a duty, an onus, a burden to lead our family, whether your family is just you and your spouse, your spouse and your kids, or maybe product of divorce or whatever, you and your children. We are the leaders. And so we, as leaders of head of the domestic church, must model the behavior that is customary of this role, of this honor, of this prerogative, of this burden. And no doubt, the cultural Marxists have done such a great job the last 50 years of inverting everything. And we know who's the master of inverting everything: Satan. So now we have the feminization of men and the masculinization of women. You see it at the gym, you see it in a lot of places as well. And no doubt, I think a lot of men have lost their compass, so to speak, and we're just rudderless. And we need to remember that we do have a special role. Men and women are created equal, but we each have our own respective strengths and burdens and prerogatives and whatnot. And for men, we are head of the domestic church. So I'm just going to give 6 tips on what we men have to do as leaders, because we must emulate good behavior. We can't tell our kids, you need to do this, or like the classic one is, you need to get off screens while you're always on Instagram or Reddit or whatever. So we need to model this behavior. So number 1, easy one, is go to Mass. Go to Sunday Mass, preferably daily Mass too, but go to Sunday Mass. It's an obligation. Why does the church, in its wisdom, implement this? In the Protestant world, it's like, yeah, if you want to go to your service, you can, but there's no obligation to go on Sundays. But Holy Mother Church puts this in because it's not because it's like, oh, if you don't go, it's a mortal sin. It's more like, what better thing do you have to do than glorify God in the holy sacrifice of the Mass? There's nothing more important. And so it puts in that obligation. So regardless of what you think, oh, I want to sleep late, or oh, I want to watch football that's in London early. No, you got to go to Mass. And we sadly see this where you see women taking the kids to church and the father's not going. Now, he might rationalize, oh, this Novus Ordo Mass is horrible, or oh, I don't like this priest, or oh, it's just bad rationalization. And it goes back to how obedience is the 4-letter word, right? You can't be obedient. It's whatever excuse you have, no excuse is good unless you're sick, or for whatever reason you're in the middle of a national park and you can't access Mass. There's no good reason. So we can't lament, oh, my kids aren't da-da-da-da-da, when you yourself are not doing the most fundamental basic thing, going to Mass. Now, when you go to Mass, let's say the words, and yes, I know this is hard, let's sing as well. Now, no doubt, look, some of you guys go to TLM, some of you go to the Ordinariate, some of you go to Novus Ordo, some of you go to Eastern Rite. And we'll just talk about Novus Ordo. Novus Ordo is very participatory, especially compared to the TLM, where TLM's quite a very silent Mass, very silent. But the Novus Ordo, it's a lot of response. And I know, look, we go to Mass all the time. We hear people just mumbling, in your spirit. But we have to model good behavior. Lex orandi, lex credendi, lex vivendi. And it's all about you participating in the Mass. And so when there is a saying that you have to say back, say it. When the singing, we've talked about ways to kind of fix the hymnody that we have today. And in a lot of Masses, the hymnody is pretty bad. It's 1960s folk music. I get it. We know it's bad. But again, at least sing the parts that we're supposed to sing, the Gloria. We're required to sing the Gloria. It's one thing if you don't want to sing the processional hymn, but the Gloria, the memorial acclamation, the Holy, 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 And even the amen, I'll tell people, it's like most Novus Ordo masses, it's like amen, 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 repeat it. But why can't we just sing one long amen instead of repeating amen 8 times? Either way, sing. Posture, number 3. This is important. This goes back to lex orandi, lex credendi, right? If our posture, let's say during the consecration, in the Eucharistic prayer, during the high part of the Holy Sacrifice of Mass, is, we're checked out, we're looking around, we're sniffing, we're cracking our knuckles, we're, looking around, checking out women, whatever it is. No, this posture is important. Posture is exceedingly important because the posture tells you what you really think about the Holy Sacrifice of the Mass and your presence there. So posture is important. So we should, I know this is old school, right? Hands here. Hands up behind our back maybe, but hands here. During the Eucharistic prayers, let's try to focus on the words. Let's take this stuff seriously. I know we don't like to kneel while everyone's receiving the Eucharist, especially if you go to a big Mass, but you offer up that little thing. Let's have good posture when we're kneeling. Let's not sit on the back and have our bum touch the wall. It's these little things of how we conform ourselves. And again, we are constantly modeling to our children and to our wife. If you're married, we're constantly modeling. And they will notice, if you're not taking it seriously, why should they take it seriously? 4th one, this one might be controversial, is purge your vices. If you're an alcoholic or alcohol dependent, which for women it's 10 drinks a week, for men it's 14 drinks a week or more, purge that. If you're watching porn, stop it. Easier said than done, of course. I know it's a major epidemic that's really not discussed. God bless people like Matt Fradd and Chris Everett and these people that go around talking about it. But it's a major problem that is not discussed, not just in Catholic circles, but in every circle. We got to purge ourselves of these things. So whether it be excessive shopping, excessive gambling, fantasy football, these are vices that suck us down. As I talked about in the most recent episode about my 10 years of fasting, we're trying to reach a higher level of asceticism, which means less of a detachment to the earthly things, to the pleasures of life, to concupiscence, our attachment to concupiscence. And these are things, whether it be porn, alcohol, whatever it is, that keep us down. So if you want to be a good head of the domestic church, and this is probably the hardest of all these that we're talking about, is you got to purge those things where Satan has a grip on us, where we are slave to these attachments. And I think it's not a shock. I think most men who are honest, who are going to be like, yeah, I love watching porn. Yeah. Well, if you love watching porn, then why don't you watch porn openly on the airplane or at a library and people can watch it? Most people are like, oh, someone's watching, there's a shame to it. So we have this kind of cognitive dissonance when it comes to this stuff, where we deep down know it is destructive to our soul. And certainly it's destructive to your marriage as well. Number 5 is pray at home, whether it be the grace, whether it be doing your rosary or a chaplet or something. If you're modeling good behavior, if you're head of the domestic church, it can't be like what we talked about in that episode, how most Catholics are secularists masquerading as Catholics. Where if you look at your schedule, your daily schedule, weekly schedule, if pretty much your only Christian thing you're doing is going to Mass on Sundays, you're really a secularist masquerading as a Catholic. Our day needs to revolve around prayer, works of mercy, preferably going to daily Mass. Do the Angelus, even if it's little prayers, but have prayer central to your life. One of the great things you can do in your home is have an altar, even if it's a crappy altar. Just have an altar. Have a prayer garden. Have crucifixes or crosses or even resurrected Jesus in every room. And always be modeling prayer. Prayer. And the last one is make faith central to your life. And this is connected to daily prayer. As head of the domestic church, the first and foremost thing should be our faith. More than our spouse, more than our kids. We must love God more than anything on this planet. We must love the Creator more than the created. And we must make our faith central. You wake up in the morning, do a prayer. Do your works of mercy. The spiritual ones are a lot easier than the corporal, right? You're not probably visiting jails, but pray for those who are having problems with their faith, the doubtful. Admonish the sinner, pray for the dead, all these spiritual works of mercy that are great. And just have your life revolve around your faith, because nothing else matters, Like this whole idea, like, oh, I'll be happy when I make 100K. And then when you get to 100K, oh yeah, I'm not happy. I'll be happy when I get to 150K. Or I'll be happy when I watch this 6 hours of sports. None of this leads to anything constructive. All this is left behind, of course, when we die. All that matters is Christ. You know the parable of the guy's like, I've had a good harvest. I'm going to knock down all of my barns and build more barns, and now I'm set and I'm just going to party the rest of my life. And what does Christ say? You fool. And he takes his life right there. Like nothing on this earth is really that important. Everything is about that. And so when you implement these 6 steps, and there's other steps, this is really going to make your life enriching, and it will make the people in your life be more likely to have Christ centered in their life. And the 7th one, we'll just throw an honorable mention, is really purge everything secular, a lot of things secular in life. What is this? Most television, most movies, most music, most of these things are completely antithetical to Christianity. They really are. And this is one of the things we talk about where we're mostly secularists masquerading as Catholics, is because these secular views, which are pretty much anti-Christ, their values are against Christ, they're anti-Christ, are wounding us daily. And they're changing us, they're vitiating us, they're contaminating us to the point where we are really secularists with some trappings of Christianity without even knowing it. So the 7th thing is just try to remove as many of these things from your life as possible. Guys, post in the comments, especially you men. I would love to hear from you. Until next time, take care, God bless, and pray.